Hello everyone, welcome to Desker's YouTube channel. My name is Saurabh. I'm one of the co-founders at Desker. Do check out our website and let us know what you think. In this video, we are going to go over the RICE Prioritization Framework. This is a great tool to have in your arsenal and something that is important for every product manager. If you work for a technology company for long enough, chances are that you've seen the prioritization framework somewhere in some presentation, some slide by the product team. If you're a product manager, you must have worked on the RICE framework, or you will at some point, because it's really popular, and it's popular because it's very simple to work on, and it's also very simple to explain to everyone. Now, before we actually dive deeper into what RICE framework is all about, let's spend a few minutes talking about why do you need this framework. Well, the short answer is, you need RICE to prioritize. Well, the next question is, why do I need to prioritize? Why can't I just go and build whatever I want? Isn't that what working in a technology company is, isn't it? Build whatever you feel like. Unfortunately not. Irrespective of the size of your company, whether you're small scrappy startup or like a really big company with a lot of resources in your hand, you'll always end up in one situation. You'll have a lot to build, you have these many things to build, but the number of resources compared to that with this much. So now you have a problem, right? You have so many things you want to build for your customers, for your stakeholders, your sales team, for yourself, but you don't have enough resources. Well, now what do? You have to prioritize. You have to identify things that are really, really important versus things that are nice to have. So RICE helps you with that. But to be honest, RICE and any other framework will help you with prioritization. But it's not like a magic pill or a magic formula that you blindly apply and there you have a prioritized set of things that you need to focus on. It only helps you with prioritization. Now let me explain why. For example, I'm a product manager. My boss comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Saurabh, I think this will be a really cool idea for us to work on. Can you go do some research and let us know? What do you think?" Well, so I go in, I spend trying to understand the competition. I Google everything. I read all these industry reports. I check out all the different technologies that can help us do that, vendors, etc., etc. And then suddenly on day 2, 3, 4, I have tons and tons of information. Now, what happens generally is you get overwhelmed with all the information that you see. And if you're one of those guys who don't get overwhelmed, your audience might when you actually present it to them. RICE or any other framework for that matter helps you synthesize, filter, and organize all this information in a way that it becomes easily consumable for your audience. When you present your findings through the RICE framework, everybody understands it a little bit better. In addition, what RICE also does for you is that it helps you make sure that all the research that you have done is balanced. For example, RICE has 4 variables. R stands for reach, I for the impact, C for the confidence you have in what you're trying to do, and E for all the effort that you have to put into getting this out of the door, right? So when you're doing a research, you might invest too much time on just trying to figure out what the impact would be. You might forget to go and talk to engineering managers about, well, what is the technical feasibility of this particular feature. But when you go and look at your RICE framework, you're like, oh, I've forgotten this one step and I need to go and find this information. So it helps you come up with recommendations that are well thought of, that think about the most important things that need to be part of your presentation. Now that we all agree that prioritization is important, and RICE helps you with prioritization. Let's dive a little bit deeper on the actual framework. So, like we've said before, RICE stands for reach, your impact, the amount of confidence you have in it, and the effort it takes to get the feature or the update or the project out the door. Let's look at each of them one by one. First up is reach. It is basically how many users is your update going to reach, right? How many people will be able to see it? One thing to be very, very careful about here is that reach and impact can sometimes be confused, and we'll go over an actual example later on to help you, see a real world example. But when I say people will be able to see it, the actual your update will reach the audience, but your audience might choose to not use it, right? That doesn't matter at this stage. Reach is basically all the people who are going to see it, or the total amount of audience who are going to be able to have access to this particular update. Now, reach is measured on a scale of 0 to 100%. 0 means nobody's going to see it. Well, why would you build a product that nobody sees or uses, right? Or 100%, which means all users are going to be able to see this particular update. The second variable in RICE is I. I stands for impact. Impact is what is the benefit of this particular update. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can measure impact. You must have seen at your workplace all the different metrics your team measures around trying to find whether you're progressing well or not. So for example, you can measure impact through if what you're delivering is increasing revenue, is going to increase revenue, is going to bring in more moolah for the company, is it going to reduce churn, are more people going to stay with your company because of the update, or is it going to increase the overall experience that existing users have. So there are a lot of different metrics that you can use to actually calculate your impact. What I would advise when thinking about impact is make sure that it aligns with the goals of your organization, and goals might keep changing. For example, this quarter your goal might be to increase revenue, another quarter your goal might be to have 10 new offerings in the market. So make sure your impact sort of aligns with your 12, 18 month product roadmap, product goals, or the overall company goals as well. Impact is measured in terms of low, medium, high, or very high. Low impact has a score of 0.25, medium is 0.5, a high impact has a value of 1, and very high has a value of 2. Now, low impact items are generally the ones that don't make the cut. Now, the question that comes is, then why do you even put them on your prioritization list? Well, because something has a low impact right now doesn't mean that it will always be a low impact item. The needs of the user, the needs of the market keep evolving over time. So the priority on things can change. So it's important for you to keep track of all the different requests that come into the product team. Now, a medium impact generally are projects that are nice to have. Some users will actually be happy. You might be able to close a few deals if you do this update, for example. High impact are the items that a lot of customers are asking you for. A lot of the people, the sales team are asking you for, or you seeing a lot of feedback come in through your different portals or through all the surveys that you do. So these are the high impact items. Generally, these are the items that you really bring into your roadmap quite often. But let's hold our horses, because impact is not the only variable, right? There are all these other variables that also influence prioritization. Very high impact, and these are big ticket items, maybe a large project or a completely new product line or something else. So these are very high impact items. Generally, very high impact items usually have very high effort as well. Not always the case, but in general they do. So the next one is confidence, RIC. C stands for confidence. Now this is the most fun one, I would say, because what is confidence? So before we talk about confidence, let's talk about all these values that we're talking about. Hey, we put 0.25, 60%, 70% reach. I have very high confidence in terms of the impact of this project, etc., etc. So basically, all these values are based on assumptions. You can't like predict. You don't have a crystal ball. You can't predict the future. You can guess the future. You can try guessing it, but that guess or your estimate is based on assumptions, your underlying assumptions, that I think the reach will be 100% if such and such happens, and I have confidence that it will happen, blah blah blah. So confidence is your accuracy of your underlying assumption. And the thing with confidence is the confidence value affects all your other metrics. So be aware. It's also very tricky because confidence value sometimes, you tend to bring in your personal biases or the biases of the people who've actually come up with the idea or the feature request. For example, if a particular idea has come up from somebody who is very optimistic, you go speak to that person and they're like, I'm telling you, man, this feature, if we can get it out the door, it will be great for the company. We will all be walking home after Christmas with fat bonuses. I'm 100% sure. That customer is optimistic and is super confident about a feature. It's possible that somebody else might have the same idea, more conservative. They'll be like, it's a good feature, but I'm not 100% sure. I think 70% sure that we might be able to bring in, X amount of dollars if you release this feature. Somebody else might be a pessimist. They might be like, this feature, we did this idea 5 years ago. It doesn't work. I have 0% confidence in it. So confidence is a matter of perception. As a product manager, you might have personal biases too. For example, if there's one particular idea you really, really like and it's your idea, you want to build it out, chances are that you'll have high confidence in its success, right? So make sure that when you're coming up with the confidence value, you go and talk to different people. Make sure you're able to try and filter out the personal biases we all have, and come up with a realistic value for confidence. You can use a number of different things, to come up with your confidence value. You can look at historical data. Has something similar been released before? What was the impact? Did it fail? Why did it fail? Has something changed that might have an impact on its success or failure? You can also, talk to customer, look at the customer feedback regarding features, to build up the right amount of confidence you have in it. Confidence generally the values are low, medium, high. Low confidence means 50%. If you have a medium level of confidence, it's 80%, and if you're very, very confident, high, it's 100%. Generally, what you'll see is low confidence would be on features that are relatively new. Maybe a completely new feature, new technology, new customer, new market. You've never done this before. Nobody in this company has done before. Since everything is new, your assumptions are not very, but they're a little flaky, a lot of assumptions. So your confidence might be low. Similarly, medium confidence could be for things that you have done before, something similar. You have historical data to back it up. It's targeted towards your current users. You have, because of the past experience, you have some level of confidence. High confidence. Well, the only example I can think of is, if you're a B2B enterprise company, you have really large customers asking for a specific feature and there's a revenue attached to it, and if you deliver it on time, you will get the revenue, and you've delivered something similar before, so you're good on the engineering side as well. So for stuff like that, you will have high confidence level. All right. The next one is effort. So we've done RIC, then the last is effort. We've looked at reach, impact, confidence. Last but not the least is the effort. My personal experience with effort is it's one of the easiest values to get, but it's almost never accurate. Now let's talk about why that happens. It's not like, people want to give you wrong values. It's because of the stage at which you use the RICE framework. So when you're using RICE framework, you're evaluating a lot of different features, what to build, what not to build. At this stage, you probably don't have very flushed out requirements. Well, you can have them, but what if you decide to not do the feature? Then all that effort is wasted. So as a product manager, you have to be efficient and you have to be smart about how you use your time. At this stage, what you do have is very high level requirements. And if you ever interacted with the engineering teams with high level of requirements, what you get is high level of estimates. They're not necessarily accurate, they're ballpark figures, but good enough for prioritization frameworks. My favorite way of measuring effort is using t-shirt size, right? If you have a t-shirt, you can have a small t-shirt, medium, large, extra large. If you're a big guy like me, everything will be extra large, unfortunately. So effort can be small, medium, large, or extra large. T-shirt sizing is what it's called. Small efforts generally 1 week, medium is 2, 4 weeks is for high, and extra large is anything that takes over a month, 4 weeks plus, etc., etc. When you see something with an extra large effort, my advice to you is break it down. Projects that become really big become extremely difficult to estimate, and your confidence level would go really down in the dumps, and your RICE score wouldn't necessarily reflect the reality. Also, it's the difference between doing frequent releases, smaller releases versus bigger releases is that when you do smaller releases, you have the opportunity to put the product right in front of the customer and say, hey, what do you think? What do you like? What do you don't like? What would you like to see? And there is nothing better than that. Getting feedback from customers early on in the product's life cycle is a great way to make sure that it's successful in the future. So when you see an extra large project, try to break it down. Anything over L, you shouldn't try to do. But I'm not trying to make a blanket statement here. It would eventually depend on the kind of industry you work on. It would depend on what the average amount of time for each project or feature is. Some companies, they build highly complex software. To build out anything, it can take them 6 months, a year. And for them, maybe Excel has a different value. So look at your company and try to figure out, what does small mean for me? What does medium mean for me? Maybe small doesn't even mean 1 week. Maybe you are not able to do anything in 1 week. It's impossible. So the values are generally driven by what works for your company and the uniqueness. So we've looked at all the 4 values, RICE, reach, impact, confidence, effort. You've come up with the values based on the scales and the units. Now what you do is you come up with the RICE score, which is basically R into I into C divided by E. The numerator is the multiplication of reach, impact, confidence, and you divide it by the effort to come up with the final RICE score. Now, you'll be able to see that when you're looking at a formula, if you increase anything in the numerator, your RICE score value will increase. When you increase anything in the denominator, the RICE score will reduce. So what does it tell us? It tells us things with higher estimates, more likely with higher effort, more likely are going to have a lower score, unless they also have a very high impact, which offsets the impact, offsets the score, or balances out the effort. So make sure you're aware of all this when coming up with the RICE score. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to try and go through an example. We've learned all this great theory about RICE. Now you're like, hey, I'm ready to apply RICE. I'm going to go this and I'm going to work with my team. We're going to do RICE. Hold your horses. Let's look at an example, because theory and actual implementation can sometimes be different. There are a few things you still need to know about RICE. So let's look at an example. You're in an e-commerce company and you're the product manager for the homepage. You've decided you want to put a button somewhere on the homepage and you want to come up with a RICE score for that. So that's our scenario. E-commerce company, product manager for homepage, you want to put a button somewhere which you're saying is going to have some impact. So how do you calculate your reach? Well, it's the home page. Reach should be 100%. So you might think, but that's not necessary. Reach can be something else as well. You have to make sure that you do a little more due diligence when calculating all these values. So ask yourself these questions. Do all the users that use our product or come to our website also come to the home page? Is home page the starting point for all the users? Do all the users scroll through the page? Where is this button going to be? Is it going to be above the fold, below the fold? It's important for you to ask all these questions to yourself, because only then can you come up with an accurate value for each. So for example, it is possible that a lot of users don't come to the home page. They directly go to the search results page or the product details page through all the marketing campaigns, email campaigns that your different teams are doing. In that case, reach value will not be 100. So let's assume that, after cutting out all those other users, 80% of the users actually come to the home page. Now, you look at the data in all your analytics tools and you find out that, out of those 80, there's some users who actually don't scroll down to the point where you're going to come up with the button. So you have to cut those number of users out too, and you come to the final reach, which is 70%. Just an example. Now the next is impact, and impact is an important one. When you're trying to come up with impact, like I said before, make sure you know what is the goal for the release, what is the goal for your update, what is the driver behind that, and what are you trying to measure. Because sometimes you just want to come out with feature without actually thinking through what is the success metrics for my particular product. Like if I release this tomorrow and somebody comes and asks me, hey, did it work? How will I know that? What value can I tell them which will make sure that which will tell us whether it's actually working as described? Now, impact in this particular scenario can be a lot of different things. If you look at the actual funnel of a typical user, and this is just an example, the user might come to the home page. After that, they might go to the search results page. Then they might add something to the cart, and then they might go and try to buy the item. Sometimes they might, when they're putting in all the credit card details, they might get distracted and go away, come back later or not come back, and some of them might actually complete the order. So what is the goal of this button? Is it to increase the total number of orders? Is it to increase the total number of people who are adding things to cart? Are you trying to solve a problem in your entire funnel where there's a big drop off from one stage to the other? Now the impact will be measured on what problem are you trying to solve. So it could be increase the number of orders. So impact is that by adding this button, I will increase the orders by X, Y, Z% or whatever, right? Now, when you come to a value, you might say, hey, okay, the impact is medium based on the amount of total orders that will increase, right? Or it could be high. So let's assume it's medium. Now, what about confidence? So for this particular example, you're an e-commerce company. I'm sure you've ordered a lot of buttons if not you, somebody else has across the sites. Lots of A/B testing has been done. You've done similar things before, so your confidence level might actually be medium to high. Let's say maybe medium, based on the fact that we've already done similar things before. Even from an effort perspective, the engineering team is pretty good at implementing buttons. They can do it in the sleep. So we have a good amount of confidence in our values. Now, same thing with effort as well. Like I said, button is something that the engineering team has been doing. So now let's note down all the values that we've talked about so far. We said reach is 70%, impact is medium, which is 0.05, confidence is medium as well, 80%, and effort is medium, which is going to take us around 2 weeks. Now plug these values into the formula for RICE, which is R into I into C divided by E, which is 70 into 0.5 into 80 divided by 2, and boom, you have your RICE score 1400. Looks good, doesn't it? Well, depends. What is the RICE score for everything else that's on your plate? All the other things in your prioritized list. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this feature and plug your RICE score in the priority list and see where it stands. Is this the item that has the highest RICE score? Possibly, maybe not, I don't know. It depends on everything else that is in your queue. Now that's what brings me to the next and the final topic that we're going to discuss: applying RICE in your organization, and some practical findings or learnings for me when I applied RICE, things that I learned. The first one is you have to educate your team. No doubt, we've said that in the beginning, RICE is a very, very easy thing to understand and follow. But if you're going to bring people into a meeting where you're going to prioritize based on RICE, make sure that you do a session before that, or at least send them a literature describing the actual RICE methodology. They should be aware of the different variables. They should know what the score is, how everything is done. Ideally, do a meeting, do a session with the key stakeholders, educating them about RICE. You know what it will do? It will help you save actual time in the prioritization meeting, so that you can discuss real things, real issues, versus explaining each variable and it becoming into this educational session versus a prioritization meeting, which is not what you want. The second is remembering assumptions. When you put out all your RICE scores across different projects, it's important that you remember assumptions you made when coming up with the RICE scores for each of them. The reason why this is that in the meeting, or when you actually discuss with other people, your assumptions might come under scanner. People might question them, and you might realize that some of the assumptions are not correct, and you might need to adjust your RICE score. Well, this which makes you wonder whether you should actually do this exercise in a meeting, or should you come up with your RICE score by yourself and then go into the meeting. I don't know. I mean, it can work different ways. If you, it's a question of doing scoring in isolation versus town hall. What I think a hybrid approach is much better. If you do it in isolation, then I'm sure when you go in and discuss your RICE scores, a lot of people are going to not agree with what you have to show, which is completely all right. But then if you go into the meeting and you actually discuss all your RICE scores in the meeting, it becomes like a town hall, and you're not really able to make progress on actual issues. So what you should do is you should come up with the initial score, engage with a lot of stakeholders, keep them updated, on different projects, what you think the RICE score is going to be, what are the different metrics going to be, what are the values going to be, and take feedback from them before the meeting, not during, not after. I mean, you should during and after, but you should have taken feedback from them on projects they know about. They can give you good information about before the meeting. Last but not the least, you might have a project that has very low RICE score, but you might still need to do it. So don't obsess on scores. Think of RICE, like we said in the beginning, it's a framework. It's supposed to help you in prioritization. It's supposed to help you and support you in making the right decision. It's supposed to help you bring together your entire research in a format that everybody can understand. But eventually, there are often factors that go beyond the RICE score in deciding whether to do a particular project or not. So be pragmatic, be practical, use the RICE score and see where it takes you. So that's all we have today to discuss in terms of the RICE score. Let us know if there is anything in this video that you did not understand. Is there any particular part that you'd want us to dive deeper into? I hope this will help you with your prioritization exercise. We're going to be going over more such formats in the future. Do let us know in the comment section if there is anything else you're interested to learn about. Till then, thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.